Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. My name is Camil, formerly known as Camilo. Mashallah, I've accepted Islam about 4 weeks ago. I did my Shahada, and ever since then I've been, happy, and I've been at peace with myself. And it's the best. I would tell you, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. Hopefully, with my story and this documentary, you especially the youth. I'm talking to the youth right now. How you guys, can learn from my mistakes, and how you guys can live a better, pious life as, true, devout Muslims. And hopefully this story will impact your lives. So it all started out when I was young, when I was born in the small city of Cali, Colombia. South America. I was born, my mom, she had me, she was 23 years old, and right from the start, unfortunately, right when I turned a year, since there was no money in Colombia, since it was a third world country, there's not a lot of money to be made there. So my mom found that out, and she moved with my dad to the United States, and they worked in a car wash, and unfortunately they had to leave me there with my grandma. So for 5 years, I had just contact with my mom and my dad on the phone, here and there, every 2 days or so. And that impacted me as a kid, because you always want to, want the loving and caring of your parents there. So I always questioned, why does my parents have to be away from me? And also, when I was growing up, being a little kid, I would, go outside and play with my friends, and I would see a lot of violence, a lot of crime happening around me. And I would also question to God, why is this happening? Why do people have to be so violent? Why are people killing other people? Stuff like that, and, I would pray to God, tell God for Him to keep my mom, my dad safe, my grandma safe, me safe. From a very young kid, as I was 5 years old, I would pray, I would read, Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't know about the Quran, but I knew that there was a divine person somewhere, hearing my prayers. So I would always pray every day, Every day I wouldn't miss a prayer, At night I would pray to God, kneeling down, I would pray and say, God, please help us, help my mom, help my dad, help my grandma. And, as time, passed by, God He would hear my prayers, and eventually my mom, she came back to Colombia, so I, got time to spend with her after 5 years. After 5 years of not seeing her, I saw her finally when I was 5 years old, and we spent time together. She went to school in Colombia. She tried, she fought to make ends meet. My dad still stayed in the States to working, and finally, God, kept answering my prayers, and my mom got accepted a work permit visa to go to the States to work as a chemist in her field, and she took me with her. And 7 years old, I'm excited for a new country, especially North America. There's a lot of hype about going to North America, the land of opportunity, United States. So I was really happy, and I went there, and I went to school, and I was a smart kid, so it didn't really take me that long to learn English, and I learned English, I learned the alphabet. I was a really good student. I got good grades. I was third grade, fourth grade, I was getting good grades, fifth grade. Everything was going good. Up until my mom got let go from her job, and her work permit was revoked, so she had to go back to Colombia. Well, that's what they told her that she had to do. I mean, my mom, knowing that there's no job opportunities in Colombia, she, decided to stay, in the country past her work permit visa, which is something, it's illegal in the country. So we were living as you would say, legal immigrants in the country. And since that was the case, there was not a lot of jobs available for, people that didn't have work permits. So my dad, he managed to get a job as a maintenance worker in a hospital, and we had to go from a really nice apartment to a really small apartment in the south side of Chicago. Just to give you a little background on the south side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago is a, you know, it's a bad, it's a good place. Some of it is, but the place that we went to go live it was really not that good. You know, there was a lot of violence and a lot of gangs, which reminded me exactly where I was in Colombia. You know, just it's just a different country, same situation. There's a lot of injustices. You know, I would question myself, why is there so many injustices in the world? And you know, from moving there, I would think I was about 10 years old. I started to see, you know, more bad stuff happening. And when I reached 13 years old, I went to the 7th grade, and then I committed my first sin, which was I smoked weed for the first time. And you know, I got led by my friend, you know, peer pressured into smoking weed. And you know, at the time, you know, it feels great, but after a while, you know, you start to think about your parents and how hard they've worked. You know, and especially when you're an immigrant, how hard they work to put you in the school, how hard they work to provide for you, put food on the table, you know, give you a shelter. You know, you start thinking about those things and you start feeling bad. You know, you're wasting your time in school. You know, instead of studying, you know, reading, doing, you know, something productive, you're wasting your time and eventually wasting your life. So I started to think about those things. And you know, when I went to school, there was a field trip that I was waiting to go for a whole month, and since I made that one little mistake, for a temporary pleasure, long-term effect, which was the principal found out that me and my friend, you know, smoked marijuana because our eyes were really red and stuff. And you know, she not only did she suspend us, but she didn't let us go to the field trip. And most important of all, you know, she told my parents, and my parents were really upset with me. You know, 13 years old, you know, already doing bad things. You know, and that's how real life was in Chicago, in the south side of Chicago. People, you know, as young as 13, joining gangs, smoking weed. There was even like people around my neighborhood who were second generation gangbangers. So their parents, 25 years old, 30 years old, were already in gangs, you know, involved in gangs and stuff like that. And you know, I started, even though I knew the bad things that were happening in around me, and I knew that those things were bad, I decided to, you know, follow those things, and I decided to hang out with the wrong people. 13, you know, I was a 13-year-old kid. My dad was always working. My mom was always working. So there was this emptiness inside me, you know, because I didn't, you know, I didn't know God, and I didn't, you know, I stopped praying as much as I prayed before. I started to lose myself as a human being, you know, and I started to do really bad things. So, you know, I would go outside, you know, there would be these kids, you know, they, a lot of times I would be robbed. You know, people would rob me for my money, and then I decided that I wanted to join a gang, and that was another worst decision of my life. The second decision I mostly regret ever doing is, you know, joining a gang. Basically, this is how it works when you join a gang. I'm not promoting it. I'm just letting you know that this is really bad. You know, this is one of the worst things I've ever did. But first, what they do is they beat you up for 2 minutes. They just beat you up for 2 minutes straight. You know, you're bleeding and stuff like that, and then they initiate you in the gang, and then they make you do a lot of bad stuff. And the bad thing about it is there's really no escape from that. Once you make that decision, there's no escape from it. You are part of their family. So I decided to join their so-called family, and that's when everything went straight bad. You know, I started to get bad grades. I started to get in trouble. I started to get in fights with other gangs, other sects, and you know, that's when my mom really, you know, when I noticed that my mom was really upset with me. She wouldn't even talk to me. You know, one of the days I was 14 years old then, and she kicked me out. Like, she kicked me out when I was 14 years old, and I was living in, you know, people's couches. 14-year-old kid, you know, living in people's couches is not a good scene. You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, I began praying again. At that time, I didn't know about Islam, but I still knew about faith, and I still knew there was a a superior being up there. So I started praying, and I started saying, God, please help me, give me one more chance, and I would prove to you that I'm going to be a better person. And how in Islam, it says in the Quran, it says God is almighty, all merciful. He listened to my prayers and He forgave me. My mom took me back, and then I started to get my act together. I started to go to school again. I graduated from elementary school, or middle school as you would say, and then I applied for high school, and then mashallah, I got accepted to a really good school in the south side of in the north side of Chicago. It was a really good school. I don't know if you guys know Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan's son, he was going to that school at the same time I was going to that school. So it was a really renowned school, and I got accepted there. And I basically right away when I got to high school, I left all the bad things away. I started to, I got accepted to honors classes, and I joined the soccer team. And mashallah, right when the tryouts came, usually this is how it works in high school. Freshmen and sophomores, they're not guaranteed any spot in the varsity team for soccer. But in my tryouts, since I played so good, the coach had to go back into because he was the coach there for a long time. He went back to the rule book, and he made a change so that I could join the varsity team, because I was really skilled at soccer. I developed my skills in soccer, and I was really good. So mashallah, I was playing for the varsity soccer team for about a month, and we actually even made it to the finals. And then that's when also I started making the wrong decisions. I betrayed God's trust, and I started to do bad things again. Like as I was explaining before, joining a gang to get out, it's very hard. So as I was in high school, my friends from around the neighborhood, around the block, started calling me, started saying, oh, you've been absent, what's going on? You have to fulfill your duties, you have to do this, you have to since I was already in high school, they wanted to use me as a front man to go to the high school and start selling drugs, start selling weed, start selling a lot of stuff, and being in a situation I was, knowing that they knew where I lived, knowing that they knew my family, knew my parents, I was very scared. So I decided to follow whatever they had to say, just for my own security. And I know it was bad. I betrayed God's trust. I told them that I would never do this again, but I started to do this all over again. And and then I started to go to school, sell weed, smoke the weed with my friends. And I would then since weed, it affects your lungs, it starts making you lazy, starts making you not perform as good. So I stopped showing up for practice. I stopped performing good during the games. The coach had stopped getting good grades. The coach eventually had to let me go. I wasted my whole opportunity as a soccer player there. That's when I started to go on the wrong path again, and the bad grades were hitting me, and then I started to go bad again, and something that I'm not proud of. And if I would have stayed in where I was going, if I would have just said no to the gang and just told my parents of the situation, they would have probably helped me, and I would have been probably, if not a professional soccer player, probably I would have been a part of a really good college in the United States with a scholarship to study, and I wasted that opportunity. And there you go again, I started to do bad things again. And then it just got to a point where my mom said she couldn't take it anymore, and she basically decided to grab her things, grab me, grab my sister, and move to Canada. She had heard from Canada from her family members, and said that Canada had good opportunities here. And but she decided one day just to grab me and move. And we moved to Canada. It was took us probably 3 days to get to Kitchener. And when we got here, we were sleeping in my mom's family members for about 3 weeks, and we presented our case to the immigration office in downtown Kitchener, and they accepted us. Mashallah, they accepted us. And once again, because God is all merciful, I prayed to Him and I asked Him for forgiveness, and I said I was going to clean up my act, and I did. I cleaned up my act. I started to attend school here in Canada, in Kitchener, Ontario, and I started to perform good. Life here wasn't as dangerous as it was there, so there wasn't really anything for me to worry about, or any safety regarding my parents or anything like that. So I began going to class. I began doing good. I've been a great student my whole life. I know if I could put myself to it, and I know you guys, who's ever watching this, if you guys say that you're not as good as anything, you're good if you put your mind to it. If you have your heart to it, if you put your soul to it, you're able to accomplish everything. So I went to school. Since I have moved from another country, the United States, the way they transfer my credits weren't I wasn't up to date with the kids here. So I entered grade 11, but I was basically taking grade 9 and grade 10 classes, but that didn't stop me. I took the classes, I passed them. I caught up with my grade 11 fellow peers, and I was doing good in school. Then again, I joined the soccer team, and I wasn't as good as I was before, but I was all right. And I started to play soccer. I started to hang out with good people, and everything was going good. But again, I messed up again, and I betrayed God's trust for the last time. And I started to party. I was 16, 17 years old, and the whole thing here in Kitchener, or not even here in Kitchener, but when you're 16, 17 years old, the whole thing that you're introduced is the partying, the girls, everything, So I started to host events for all ages parties. So we would basically host all ages club parties. So the club parties, 19 plus events, we would actually hold all ages events. So kids from high school, 14 years old, all the way to 18, even older than that, could attend. And I would host party buses, and I went back to my old ways. I started to sell drugs. I started to sell alcohol to people. I started to make my own buses. I was like I was in Chicago. I was seeking the money. I was seeking profit, and I went back to the wrong path. I would go to party with girls. I would participate in bad actions with girls, and I went back to my old self. And again, my mom, hard worker as she was, she's, like I said, worked back and bone to put a shelter over my head, give me food, give me a good education, provide for me. I betrayed her trust, but most importantly, once again, I betrayed God's trust. And then it didn't hit me till, my mom just had enough. And since I was 16, I was at legal age to be kicked out, and she just kicked me out of the house. And then I had to learn the hard way. I had to go to a shelter, and I lived there for a while. And since I couldn't work yet because I hadn't gotten my work permit, I was basically with no money. My mom didn't want to be with me, and I was just struggling to make ends meet for myself. 16-year-old kid in the streets, again, because of my own poor decisions. I was, lost again in the world. Then once again, I asked God for forgiveness one last time. Please, one more chance. And like I said earlier, God is all merciful. He forgives your sins. And I sincerely got down on my knees and I asked God for forgiveness, and you know, God answered my prayers. And 2 weeks later, after I got kicked out, my mom called me, and you know, she asked to meet with me, and you know, we met together. I helped to get her groceries inside her house, and she had a talk with me. She said, "Look, Camilo, it's already been 3 times that you've gone to the wrong side. You know, you know better. You know, even though she's not a Muslim, she taught me morals. She taught me respect. She taught me, you know, the good things in life. And you know, she said, I'm disappointed that with me breaking my back, with me doing all these things for you, caring about you, being there for you, you betray my trust, but you also betray God's trust. And you know, you can't just keep asking for forgiveness and, you know, expect God or me to be there all the time for you. So this is the last time that I will ever, you know, forgive you, and I will ever accept you in my house again. So please, you know, take advantage of it." So once again, I took advantage of it, and this time around, I cleaned up my act. You know, I graduated from high school. I got all my credits I needed to do, and you know, I got accepted to college, and I went to college, and here I am today. And I just want to tell you guys have an opportunity. You know, you guys were born Muslims. Some of you were born Muslims. Some of your parents are Muslim. Some of you are only hitting that age, you know, 14 years old, 15 years old. And I'm just letting you know that you guys, you know, have the opportunity to basically take advantage of all the opportunities there is in this country, all the opportunities that your parents give you. You know, they put you, just thank God for the shelter, and you know, you know, thank God for having both parents. If you have both parents, if you only have one parent, thank God for that one parent. You know, thank God that they provide for you. Thank God that they're there for you. You know, to support you. You know, if they're not there to support you that much monetarily, financially, they're always going to be there supporting you. You know, morally. You know, because that's the way that the Quran teaches us. You know, and you also have to learn to respect your parents, even though I did all those bad things that I regret. I never disrespected my mom. I've always respected her. You know, she was always there for me. So she always earned my respect from day one. And even if your mom is, you know, she doesn't understand you at times. You know, you guys are going through that age where you might think your parents don't understand you. You know, they don't know what you're going through. They were once your age. They were once wearing your shoes. You have to listen to them, respect them. You know, they were there. You know, I was there. You know, right now I'm 21 years old, and I can tell you I've experienced a lot of things that you guys probably never ever experienced in your lifetime before. From when I was 13 all the way till I was 17, 18, and I can tell you that path is the wrong path. This path of Islam is the right path. I'll give you a brief explanation how I came to Islam. The first time I've ever heard about Islam was in 2001. I had a friend back in, you know, I think I was in grade 3. His name was Abdullah. Me and Abdullah were great friends. He was a great kid, you know. Every time we go outside for recess, I would play with him. He was a good friend, you know. He liked soccer too, so we played soccer together, and you know, everything was good, you know. I never thought of him anything else, you know. I never thought anything about him, you know. All of a sudden, you know, as you guys know, September 11, when the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, the 2 planes hit the World Trade Center, everything changed from then on for Abdul, and I feel bad to this day for poor Abdul. I hope that wherever he's at right now, he's good. His parents are good. Everything is good. After that, like when I went to school, everyone was devastated, but you know, the whole media was portraying, you know, Islam because of the extremists, you know, the radical extremists, as a bad religion, you know, a religion that teaches hate, you know, that teaches suicide, teaches everything that the Quran never mentions. And you know, people that were that ignorant that they, you know, blamed everyone with the main name Muhammad, Abdul, anything that had to do with Islam, they just hated it. So, I would go to school and I would see, all the kids mess with my friend Abdul, and I know, because my mom raised me as a person who judges based on character, not of where you come from, not where you live, not what color you are, not anything, what you follow, anything. My mom said, when you talk to a person, you judge them based on their character. So since Abdul was a nice kid, he would always, even when you bring lunch to school, he would share his lunch with me. He had like Middle Eastern food, which is, great, by the way. He would share it with me, and I judged him based on his character, the way that my mom taught me. And I would see the kids come up to him, say, "Oh, your parents, your religion is responsible for the terrorist attacks. You terrorists." They'd try to beat up on him. I would always protect him, and I would push the kids away, and I would say, I would walk him to his house. I would, his mom would greet me and thank me for it. I was a little bit tall back then, and so the kids would pick on him. I would just push them away. And then I started to. That's when, I was young back then, but that's when I got introduced to Islam a little bit, and I saw that their parents used to invite me to come eat, and I would see these people are genuinely good people. Like they don't do anything different from us. They probably are nicer than most of the people in North America are. They treat guests like their family, like they give you food. They don't take no for an answer. That's one thing they don't do. But I saw that they were genuinely good people, and I would go home and I would tell my mom, like, "Mom, look, Abdul is a nice kid. Please don't be fooled by what the media tells you. They're nice people and stuff like that." My mom, she wasn't really buying it back then. I understand her, but I took her own advice, and I judged him based on his character. And then later on, as years progressed, Abdul, since we moved to the south side, me and Abdul stopped, talking to each other, and then, I started, Islam. I didn't really know that much about Islam. My mom was a Christian, like I said before, so I would go to church with her, and stuff like that. But then I got introduced to Islam again by forms of hip hop. I was a really fan of hip hop, and I used to listen to this guy called Lupe Fiasco. He was a really good rapper. He didn't really rap about the things that most famous rappers rap about, which is money, drugs, girls, and stuff like that. He was a conscious rapper. And not only was he a conscious rapper, not only did he rap about injustices in the world, like I liked, and all the things that are happening around him. He was a Chicago born, and he was Muslim. So I researched him, and I researched that he was a Muslim, and I started to read a little bit about Islam, and I started to get a little bit intrigued with Islam, and I read that they believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was their last prophet. They believed in all the prophets, Jesus, Isa, peace be upon him, Musa, peace be upon him, and all the other prophets that are mentioned in the Bible as well, peace be upon all of them. And I started to get a little bit interested in it, and finally, when I moved to Kitchener, Ontario, I would listen to another hip hop artist. His name was Immortal Technique. He also mentioned a lot about Islam, and he mentioned how the government and the media portrays Islam as dangerous and full of hate, but he also explains how Islam is not that, and how it's a beautiful religion. And I started also to do more research and more research. I was as you can say, I was trying to look for an identity. I was trying to look for a faith. I was trying to look for an answer for God to help me, and I was looking everywhere. Since I love history, I was researching about the ancient times, the times of Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And I saw that both Muslims and both descendants from the Prophet Muhammad, and peace be upon him, and Prophet Jesus were, children of God. Jesus was a prophet of the Israeli people, and he led the Israeli people back to, worshiping one God, and he was the messenger for the children of Israel. And Prophet Muhammad preached the word, peace be upon him, to the children of Ismail, the Arabs, and he spread his message. And I saw how powerful Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became, how good of a role model he was for people. And I started to respect him, and I started to look at a documentary that Immortal Technique did. You guys should see it. I think it's called The Revolution. It's by Immortal Technique. He goes to Afghanistan, and he sets up a charity for an Islamic school in Afghanistan, and it shows how how the kids there, they need help and they need that. So I started to do a little bit of research about those things. And finally, when I was going to before I went to college, I met a good friend of mine. His name is Zachariah. I met him through a class that we were taking, and we would go to the prayer room every day. I would go to the prayer room to pray a little bit, and to ask God for help with school, for my mom, for my dad, everyone. And he would be there reading the Quran and praying. So I saw him praying, and I was a little bit intrigued with the way that he was praying, and I asked him, I was like, why do you pray like that? He's like, well, that's the way the Quran teaches us. We have to recite the surahs, and pray to Mecca, and which is the house of God. And it basically is a point. It's a time where we connect with God, and we ask him for everything. Ask him for help. We recite the beautiful Quran, and I would hear him recite it, and I would be intrigued by it. And me and him would start having discussions about Christianity and Islam, and he would tell me, like, look, brother, there's almost no difference between Islam and Christianity. The only difference is that you guys believe that Jesus is, peace be upon him, a great prophet, he's God, and we don't believe that. And he started to explain the reasoning behind that, and it started to make sense. And after that point, I started to read the Quran, and I found out, hey, this is very similar to the Bible. And and it actually, the beautiful part about it is that it's never been altered. It's obviously it's been translated to English, but people have translated to English, scholars have translated to English in the best way that it's interpreted. It hasn't been broken down from how the Bible was from the Romans, the Greeks, the English. It hasn't been broken down, and altered the way all these Bibles are. And there's not many different types of Christianity, 34,000 to be exact. And there's only one type of Islam. And I started to realize, like, hey, maybe this is the right path. And I started to read, and then mashallah, during another semester at the school, I met this young girl. She was a Muslim. I didn't know. She just we started talking, and she was a Muslim. And then I started talking to her about how I was interested in Islam, and she gave me a lot of books, and she started to help me in my understanding of Islam and my understanding of the Quran. And I started to understand it a little bit more. I started to read. Then as the months progressed, I began praying, and then I started to feel something good inside, like something that I was looking for ever since when I was little. When I started praying for the first time, I prayed to God. I asked him for guidance since I was little, but there was something else missing inside me, some type of I would say peace that I needed, that I was looking for in my life. And once I started praying and once I started reciting the surahs, I found that peace. And that's when I knew at that point that Islam is the right religion, is the right faith, and it will guide me to happiness, and most importantly, it would bring me closer to God and help me find my inner peace that I was looking for. And I found my inner peace. And you know, fast forward till about 1 month ago, I decided that the girl that she helped me my transition into Islam, and you know, was patient with me while I was asking her questions. She would answer it for me, and also my friend Zachariah helped me as well. The girl, I decided that I wanted to marry her. So then the only thing that was missing for me was for me to do the Shahada. And I talked to my friend, my brother Zachariah, and he, you know, he said it's no problem. You know, we can go to the mosque and we can do your Shahada, and then we can start praying there. You know, you'll meet the brothers; they're all nice. And then, you know, I decided to go for Fajr prayer. It was I remember it was a Saturday morning, beautiful Saturday morning. The weather was nice, and I went. I felt so happy. You know, there was something inside me. I was so excited. And then I went to go meet the Imam. I met the Imam. You know, we talked for a bit, and then the prayer came, Fajr. We prayed. You know, everything was nice, and the Imam said, we have a new convert. He's going to do his Shahada, and you know, all the brothers welcome him into the beautiful religion of Islam. And I did my Shahada, and
you will say with me, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah wa ashhadu anna Isa Rasulullah. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his last messenger, and Isa Jesus is his messenger too. جزاكم الله خيرا. تكبير. الله أكبر. لله رب العالمين. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يثبت إيمانه. اللهم آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا رب العرش العظيم. Praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah strengthen your face. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase your iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase your knowledge about Islam. And you have to know that this is your community. Those are your brothers. Have to come to them for any need. And also we will encourage you, inshallah, from now on to come to the masjid to be part of the community. And I'm here, all the brothers here for your help, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Once I did my Shahada, I had the same feeling I felt when I finished the Quran, the same inner peace, but a little bit better. You know, I said it, you know, they welcomed me into Islam with open arms. And you know, I remember one of the brothers saying, you know, even though, you know, you converted to Islam, you have to remember one of the most important things in Islam is to respect your mother. You know, and I told him, you know, I've respected her my whole life, and even though she's a, you know, Christian, I just gotta be patient, and hopefully, inshallah, she might convert in the future. And even if she doesn't convert, I'm still gonna respect her either way, you know, because that's what the religion teaches us, and that's what I've known my whole life. And yeah, that's basically the story. And now, after that, after I did my Shahada, and you know, after I finished the Quran, and after I became a devout Muslim, an actual devout Muslim, I decided to marry the girl that was helping me throughout my whole transition into Islam. And you know, I went to her house, I asked for her hand, you know, and it was all beautiful. You know, we got married at the masjid, and now tomorrow actually we're moving to Edmonton, starting a new life. And inshallah, everything goes, you know, good. And even if you know, I'm not blessed with the you know, the monetary finances of the world, I still thank God every day for giving me a good wife, you know, and giving me a good life, a long life. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you guys think about, you know, the future, and I hope you guys pray to Allah for the blessings that, you know, you have in your life, and make dua for me for my new life, you know, in Edmonton. And I would keep you guys in my prayers. I'll, you know, keep in contact with the coordinators of DREAMedia, support DREAMedia. And yep, Assalamu alaikum, have a good day.